Hello, and welcome to Wrestling with Poetry, Kalamazoo, Michigan's premier wrestling and poetry podcast. Today, poet Douglas Piccinnini, and we'll talk about the promoters of professional wrestling. But first, let's hear from Douglas. Douglas Piccinnini was born in New York in 1982. He is the author of Beautiful, Safe, and Free, new books, Blood Oboe, Omnidon, and Storybook, a novella, The Cultural Society, as well as numerous chapbooks. His work has appeared in publications such as Academy of American Poets Poem a Day, American Poetry Review, The Brooklyn Rail, Colorado Review, Denver Quarterly, Fence, Lana Turner, Michigan Quarterly Review, Prelude, Tupelo Quarterly, Verse, Volt, The Volta, and other outlets. Piccinnini has been awarded residencies by Art Farm, Nebraska, the Elizabeth Bishop Society of Nova Scotia, the Vermont Studio Center, Sundress Academy for the Arts in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the Mastheads in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. He lives with his wife, Tara, and their son, Oblio, in Frenchtown, New Jersey.
This is a section from a poem called A Western Sky. The future approaches as if it were fixed. No days but days multiply. Rooms of a house you know and have entered. Remember change, this custom like a place you feel, studded in sky, swept away, in a substance like a signal departing as it arrives. To keep time, to see a treetop touched breeze, to say that, for example, you lose the keys everywhere to find them.
Thank you, Douglas. That was really beautiful. Today, I am going to be talking about promotion. In wrestling, there are promotion companies. There's nothing wrong with promoting. There's nothing wrong with promoting per se. I'm telling myself this. Probably you already know that. Anyway, promotions companies are very important to wrestling in particular. They get the word out about the matches. They stage matches, and they are the ones who collect the talent and provide the opportunities. They each have a roster of wrestlers, and these wrestlers are committed to a certain extent. Some wrestlers belong to a number of different promotions. Wrestlers, by and large, are considered independent contractors. More about that later. So, as I say, in wrestling, the wrestlers sign with a promotion company and they arrange the matches, the publicity, and so forth. Promotion companies in pro wrestling provide a reliable source of matches, so they serve a function. And some of them will have their own titles. Their own, like, world champion and then the weight class. In the U.S., there are quite a few wrestling promotions, many of which also train wrestlers for money. For instance, like, it'll be a wrestling school, which will also have wrestling matches. That's not uncommon. A lot of older wrestlers, when they want to not wrestle anymore, they'll start a wrestling school. In the U.S., here's a list from Wikipedia. All-American Wrestling, All-Elite Wrestling, All-Pro Wrestling, Assault Championship Wrestling, I-Bang, that's Terry Funk's, Chaotic Wrestling, Combat Zone Wrestling, Deadlock Pro Wrestling, East Coast Wrestling Association, Empire Wrestling Federation, Funking Conservatory, Game Changer Wrestling, Harley Race's Wrestling Academy, House of Hardcore, House of Glory, Impact Wrestling, Independence Pro Wrestling, which is here in Kalamazoo, Independent Wrestling Association Mid-South, Juggalo Championship Wrestling, that's also in Michigan, Luka Vavoom, Major League Wrestling, MCW Pro Wrestling, Millennium Wrestling Federation, National Wrestling Alliance. Billy Corrigan of the Smashing Pumpkins musical group is the president of that now. New England Championship Wrestling. I believe that's where Sexy Jesus used to wrestle. Northeast Wrestling, Ohio Valley Wrestling, like in the documentary, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, Reality of Wrestling, Revolutionary Championship Wrestling, Ring of Honor, Shimmer Women Athletes, Southern States Wrestling, Texas All-Star Wrestling, Texas Wrestling Alliance, Top Rope Promotions, Ultra Championship Wrestling Zero, United Wrestling Network, that's a governing body, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, Warrior Wrestling, West Coast Wrestling Connection, Women Superstars United, Women of Wrestling, World League Wrestling, World Wrestling Network, that's another governing body, which controls Full Impact Pro and Shine Wrestling, World Extreme Wrestling, and then of course there's the WWE, which is World Wrestling Entertainment. And their subcategories are Raw, SmackDown, and NXT, meaning next. As of now, there is no professional wrestling union, but Freddie Prinze Jr. is aiming to change that by running his own wrestling promotions, and he wants all his wrestlers to be SAG members. On this website, which is called CagesideSeat.com, in May of 2022, there's an article about how Freddie Prinze Jr. intends to purchase and run a wrestling promotion outfit. And I want to promote this promotion because he intends to unionize the wrestlers. And I think that's fantastic. This gives wrestlers a bit of a social safety net in the form of health insurance, and it provides collective bargaining power. That's the key. Freddie Prinze Jr., I hope your wrestling promotion's dream becomes a reality and that wrestlers get to join a union. Yes, here's to the future. Speaking of future events this week. Satellite Records will be conducting their weekly open mic this Thursday, November 2nd at 5:30 p.m. Please bring your poems, stories, raps, songs, and be prepared to have a good time with a great crowd of writers and readers. Satellite Records is at 808 South Westnedge Avenue in Kalamazoo, Michigan. That's Thursday, November 2nd at 5:30 p.m. Independence Pro Wrestling returns to Kalamazoo at Ruggers Up and Under, which is a sports bar. The event is called Warfare, and it happens Saturday, November 18th. Tickets are between $10 and $30, and the location of that, 711 West Michigan Avenue, Kalamazoo, Michigan, 49007. And do you know how drama is the extension of poetry? Drama is the extension of poetry, and this week, last week I was in a play, and this upcoming week, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I'll be at Kalamazoo's beautiful Civic Theater in the play entitled Whose Life Is It Anyway? This will have some phenomenal actors, and if you're in Kalamazoo, on Friday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m., you can get tickets to the show. Walk-ins are welcome. It'll give you a lot to think about in terms of end-of-life care issues. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Promotion is not necessarily a dirty word. Thank you all for listening. Thank you, Douglas, for sharing your gorgeous poem. And anybody out there with poems to share or questions about wrestling or poetry or drama, why don't you drop us a line? wrestlingwithpoetry@gmail.com. We'd love to answer any of your questions or talk about your concerns. That's wrestlingwithpoetry@gmail.com. Thank you and have a beautiful week.